Hmm. G.I. Joe to make 1/12 scale slash 6-inch action figures. Yeah, okay, well, I'm done with G.I. Joe at this point. I've collected 12-inch, I've collected 3 and 3/4 inch. Heck, I even have a bunch of the old 8-inch Sigma 6 line. Yeah, other than like Super Joe, I think I've collected most every G.I. Joe scale I can think of, and honestly, yeah, I think I can skip one, okay? 6-inch G.I. Joes. Yeah, pull the other one. Ha! What? I have a problem. I'm a junkie. And in this case, I don't think I deserve all the blame. I think the blame goes to Tony from Analog Toys, Bobby Valla from Valaverse, and Grindhead Jim. What's up, Internet? Jay here with Nerd Rage Against the Machine, and today I'm going to talk about my current obsession, my new obsession, and that is the 1/12 scale military figures, and specifically in this point, G.I. Joe Classified. I had every intention of not collecting this originally. When I first saw them, I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to pass. However, time and everything changes things. Now, I mentioned blaming 3 people in this video, and I do blame them, but not there's no malice there. I want to make that point clear. Starting with Grindhead Jim, I have known Jim for several years. He's a good friend of mine. I have nothing but respect for the dude. We don't always see eye to eye, and I will argue with him till the hilt, but I can respect him. He is somebody that I admire and respect. As for Tony from Analog Toys, I don't know him as well, but his videos are very informative and amazing. If you have never seen Analog Toys and you're a toy collector, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. My biggest problem with Tony and Analog Toys is that he ends up making me spend money. Maybe not intentionally, but that's what happens. Be fair. As per Bobby Valla and Valaverse, I'm going to get to that story in a little bit. So, like so many of you out there who collect and who are toy collectors and fans, G.I. Joe is one of those brands that's it's been there forever. I'm old enough to remember the 12-inch line. My brother and I got some of those as kids. My mother had this very specific rule that we would never have the same toys. So we would never get like matching X-Wings or matching G.I. Joes. So in that respect, my brother, being the older brother, always got the white G.I. Joes, and I always got the brothers. But it was cool. I enjoyed them. It was a lot of fun. G.I. Joe was a lot of fun. Same thing was true with Bionic Man. My brother tended to get Steve Austin. I tended to get Jamie Summers, the Bionic Woman. This is just how my house was. In fact, when it came to Star Wars figures, I always laughed because I got the Millennium Falcon. My brother got Han and Chewie, but I got the Millennium Falcon. So, he couldn't fly him anywhere, but I didn't have a pilot. Kind of the way things went in our house. To that end, when A Real American Hero came out, my brother was old enough that he was out of that stuff. I most definitely was not. I'm decently younger than him, about 3 years. And I obsessed over it. My parents were in the middle of a divorce when this was big, and I had become obsessed with G.I. Joe. And as we were, reeling with the family stuff, my father came back to us and apologized and promised everything was going to be better. In fact, one of the big things he did to try to win me and my brother over is he gave us each $100. This is how I ended up with a Mobat and a Sky Striker. I mean, let's be, keeping it 100 here. To that end, though, my dad was living in Scotland. He worked in oil and he moved all over the place, and I'd moved all over the place as a kid. Perpetually the new kid. It's one of the reasons I hate moving now and probably will never leave Iowa again, with rare exception. Visit, yes. Move, no. So anywho, my family was moving to Scotland, and here I was obsessed with this one thing, G.I. Joe, and well, they were going to have a real American hero in the UK, or so I thought. A couple weeks in, we ended up in an Asda, which is a British chain of supermarkets that had a toy section and other sections. I mean, it really did have a lot of different stuff, kind of like a Super Walmart or Target does nowadays. And I came upon my first Action Force figures, and it was such a weird revelation, seeing things like the Cobra Fang with Tripwire as a pilot for the SAS, seeing the Vamp for the SAS with Snake Eyes, or the HAL laser system painted red with a Cobra Commander repaint as the Red Laser. And the fact that they organized them into groups of military groups I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, I became obsessed. In fact, one of my favorite stories when I was in college, one of my friends there was talking at a party. He loved to listen to the sound of his own voice. Very, much one of these, I'm the smartest man in the room guys. And he started talking about how the British were so pacifistic and non-militaristic that they didn't even have an analogy for G.I. Joe. And I just looked and said, dude, what about Action Force? What do you mean? Action Force, the British version of G.I. Joe. Most of it was repainted G.I. Joe stuff. The vehicle drivers, they had their own figures as well, and they even organized them into branches. I mean, there was the Z Force, there was Q Force, there was Space Force. I collected the heck out of Space Force. Don't judge me. And they did a lot of things to really upgrade those vehicles and make a better version of G.I. Joe. And really, while I was there, that was my world. That, and that's also where I learned to play Dungeons and Dragons, which led me into my other obsession, pen and paper role-playing. So, saying all that, we come back to the States about 6 months later, and I pick right back up with G.I. Joe. That's when the Dreadnoks had come out. So, I kept with the line for a while until I too got old enough that I started thinking, yeah, I'm looking like a dork. But that didn't last long. I really was one of these people who was collecting. My mother has gone from the, oh my God, how old are you when you're buying these toys? To yeah, I give up. I'm not even gonna try. And now it's actually been useful having a kid. So when I walk into the toy aisle, I don't feel so bad. It's like, well, I'm here for my daughter, and if they have a Master Universe Origins Many Faces, I'm good too. Saying that though, I collected the 25th anniversary. I collected plenty of Star Wars. Collected a lot of other things. And well, honestly, when I first heard about this line and looked at it, I was less than impressed. I wasn't going to spend 20 bucks a figure for a bunch of these guys. And then I started hearing the rumblings about Action Force. Bobby Valla, former Hasbro employee, making the Valaverse and specifically Action Force. And I looked at what he had, I looked at what I saw, and honestly, it really impressed me. This seemed like the perfect line. And, it's that whole, if she's Miss Right, meet Miss Right now. That's kind of what prompted me to get into this. That, and plus taking my kid into Target and finding the supposedly impossible to find Breaker plus Ram. One of the big joys I've had with this collection, collecting it as short a time as I have, is I've pretty much gotten everyone I wanted at a pretty decent price. There's a couple that I went maybe $5 over cost for, but not a ton. And part of that is the fact that I did wait so long, where people are still pulling their hairs out to find certain figures. I know I've heard a lot of horror stories about finding Barbecue, which he wasn't really high on my list, so I'm not too worried. But I had those same problems with the Motu Origins line, and wanting to strangle somebody if they couldn't find me a decent priced Trapjaw or Battle Armor He-Man, or let these guys drop on their own. Saying that though, these figures are pretty decent, and I owe a lot of the success to the collection. There's a few that you don't see here that are literally in the mail. I'm supposed to get in Duke and Scarlet today as an example. But this is all about patience, really, is why I've gotten who I've gotten, and a few things I've compromised, such as getting the movie version of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, which eventually I intend to upgrade. But for the most part, they're pretty decent. The figures themselves are very well sculpted. They're very decently articulated. Some of the complaints I've heard I totally agree with. The big one I think that Analog Toys had brought up was the ridiculous weapons. And this, from what I understand, is based because it was based on a video game, such as the hair crimper from hell that Roadblock comes with. Yeah, I get it. Now, granted, G.I. Joe was never known for their military accuracy. I mean, just look at the backpack that Grunt comes with. You know, in a time when Alice gear in the 1980s was this heavy metal frame thing, he's carrying a book bag that couldn't carry 3 D&D books in it. You know, and so yeah, this line is kind of a mixed bag in that respect. The weapons, you know, are kind of goofy. Some of them are pretty iconic, and they're getting better. That's one of the reasons. In fact, I did order one of the weapon packs from Valaverse because yeah, some of that stuff just looks way better. I'm not lying about that, and I am going to be changing some weapons out here. The line itself, though, is very well done, very well sculpted. And I've also found a lot of decent 3D printed resources online. Now, one thing about 3D printing, if you haven't done it or you know don't know much about it, one of the big things I always like to point out to people is that a benefit of 3D printing is you're taking a computer model and you're basically building it in real life. So one thing is that you, even if you don't have any modeling skills, if you have the file, you can always modify it. Case in point, for the game Battletech, I did print a bunch of mechs, but I have a bunch of legally purchased, legitimate FOSSA models or Catalyst models. So what I did was I printed all my battle mechs for Battletech have been printed at a scale that's more like Warhammer scale. So they're more like 12-inch mechs, which look imposing on the battlefield and are cool as hell. In this case, it's the same thing. What I've printed here, some of these things were actually originally intended for the 3 3/4-inch toy lines, but the scale is, these are 165% the size of the 3 3/4-inch figures. So as long as you keep that number 165 in mind when you scale, you know, going from a 100% model that was designed for a 3 3/4-inch figure, you can scale that up, and they look amazing. A little modeling work, and again, they fit right at home, and you know, I think there's going to be some great action figure photography opportunities for this line, and also just looking at them and having them displayed, they are just cool as hell. So yeah, I didn't get into this I did get into this as unintended, but there you go. And the line, like I said, I know a lot of the hate that Hasbro gets, and some of it I definitely do think is deserved. As for the supply line, I'm hoping to hell that I'm right here, that patience was really the answer. And because of the fact that I came in later when things were starting to come back into restock, you know, like I said, I'm pretty much at a point where there's not much I'm missing that I feel damned to have missed. So with that, any questions, comments, concerns, you know, feel free to talk about it. I'd love to talk to you about this line and talk to other collectors in general. So feel free to leave stuff in the comments. In the meantime, like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, adieu.